Welcome to the Digital Pitfalls, baby show. Yeah, we back on it. One step above the consciousness, the woke, the left, the socialists, the comrades, the think bots. Well, what do we got here today? As you know, I stay with a hit power show. I stay coming with the coldest of the coldest for the coldest. Let me get right into it. Hold on.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exist for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another four-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Honestly, she should be locked up. The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media, the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever's necessary. The Clintons are criminals, remember that. This is well documented, and the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefits of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Welcome to the show. You might be wondering, how did we get to this point? How did the corruption of DC become so blatant, so obvious? Well, some of you are woke and you can see it. Some of you are struggling because you can't see it. You still under the ideology of the Democrat plantation. You what we call the Democrat loyalists. But the plan started several decades ago. I'm sure you watch a lot of YouTube. I'm sure you heard a lot of perspectives. But I want to take you back to 1971. That was the year I was born. And this is how we got in this mess. President Nixon.
Because of unfair exchange rates. When the unfair treatment is ended, the import tax will end as well. As a result of these actions, the product of American labor will be more competitive, and the unfair edge that some of our foreign competition has will be removed. This is a major reason why our trade balance has eroded over the past 15 years.
Now, 1 second, one momento. Let me start that back.
In the past 7 years, there's been an average of one international monetary crisis every year. Now, who gains from these crises? Not the working man, not the investor, not the real producers of wealth. The gainers are the international money speculators. Because they thrive on crises, they help to create them. In recent weeks, the speculators have been waging an all-out war on the American dollar. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
Hold on. Nixon just said he's directed parts of the government to suspend the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other assets. Frankly, he took you off the gold standard. And the fiat petrodollar was born. Now, he said at that time that the economy was strong. And up until that speech, the economy was based on the gold-backed dollar. He said he was going to protect your interests. Since 1971, we went into the oil crisis. And then we went into inflation, hyperinflation, quantitative easing 1, quantitative easing 2, quantitative easing 3, then quantitative tightening, and then Donald Trump. Donald Trump versus the feds. Donald Trump versus the CIA. Donald Trump versus the Clinton Foundation. Donald Trump versus the Democrats. Donald Trump versus the socialists. Donald Trump versus the communists. Donald Trump versus the globalists. Donald Trump versus you niggas. That's a whole lot of verses. Now, that's the moment they took your money and backed it with nothing. And since then, they put in $4 trillion into the economy. They created the International Monetary Fund. Broke countries. They was on their way to a one world currency. Now, this didn't just start there. We got to go back even further. To some John F. Kennedy. What did he have to say?
Union have a special capacity in the field of space. There is room for new cooperation, for further joint efforts in the regulation and exploration of space. I include among these possibilities a joint expedition to the moon. Space offers no problems of sovereignty. By resolution of this assembly, the members of the United Nations have forsworn any claim to territorial rights in outer space or on celestial bodies, and declared that international law and the United Nations Charter will apply. Why, therefore, should man's first flight to the moon be a matter of national competition? Why should the United States and the Soviet Union, in preparing for such expeditions, become involved in immense duplications of research, construction, and expenditure? Surely we should explore whether the scientists and astronauts of our two countries, and that freedom is more enduring than coercion. And in the contest for a better life, all the world can be a winner. The effort to improve the conditions of man, however, is not a task for the few. It is the task of all nations, acting alone, acting in groups, acting in the United Nations. The plague and pestilence and plunder and pollution, the hazards of nature and the hunger of children are the foes of every nation. Has man had such capacity to control his own environment, to end thirst and hunger, to conquer poverty and disease, to banish illiteracy and massive human misery. We have the power to make this the best generation of mankind in the history of the world, or to make it the last. The provision of development assistance by individual nations must go on, but the United Nations also must play a larger role in helping bring to all men the fruits of modern science and industry. A United Nations conference on this subject, held earlier this year at Geneva, opened new vistas for the developing countries. Next year, a United Nations conference on trade will consider the needs of these nations for new markets. And more than 4/5 of the entire United Nations system can be found today mobilizing the weapons of science and technology for the United Nations Decade of Development.
Now, hold on. Because while John F. Kennedy was propagating the moon and enlarging the power of the United Nations, we step back a little bit further in history to Robert Welch, 1958, and the insiders' plan to destroy America. Listen to this.
15 years. One, our first and most important specific undertaking should be to restore the complete independence of the United States. This includes our resolution to get us out of the United Nations and get the United Nations out of the United States. Two, we must once again make our money freely redeemable in gold at some realistic price. And we must take all practicable legislative steps to prevent a recurrence of the enormous thievery and other subversive crimes that have been perpetrated on the American people through a contrived inflation by every president from Franklin Roosevelt through Richard Nixon. Three, we should reduce the number of government bureaus, of government civilian employees, and the whole quantity of government by at least 50%. And we should achieve at least this much reduction in proper fashion through gradually convincing a majority of the American people of the wisdom of such a course. Four, we should withdraw all American troops from every spot on earth that is not American soil, except when and where such troops may be required as decided by Congress to protect American lives and property from criminal vandalism. Five, we should get government out of the areas and functions and activities where government does not belong. Again, all steps to this end should be taken gradually, but nevertheless just as rapidly as enough of the American people can be persuaded to support such progress. Any such achievement will require a truly massive educational force, but that's exactly what we hope to build during the next 15 years. We could go ahead for at least 100 numbered items, but the John Birch Society will undoubtedly be working on more than that many specific projects, which will be laid out in its bulletins before another 180 months will have rolled around. And all of these projects will fit into the general pattern indicated by the 5 major objectives listed above. So let's really wind up this marathon monologue with one final thought. None of us can guarantee anything about what the future will bring. Your speaker knows what a job we have before us to rid our country of the scourge of communism within the next few years, and then to go ahead on our constructive program so well that 15 years from now, we shall already be entering an era of far less government, of a much sounder sense of responsibility, and, with God's help, of a better world. But I sincerely believe that it can be done, and this much I know. If every man and woman in this audience should leave here tonight feeling in his or her own mind and heart that it can and must be done, then it surely will be.
Now, this is 1958 through the John Birch Society that we should limit the government, that we should bring back the gold-backed dollar. This led us into the next phase, where the deep state fought back. When Nixon fully erased the national gold-backed dollar and put us on a pure premium, mid-grade and unleaded petrodollar. This is complicated stuff. This is complicated stuff. Now, as the deep state advanced more and more and more and more until they got to the point that we became a police state where your vacuum cleaner can spy on you. Your doorbell got a camera. Your TV got a camera. Your computer got a camera. And the government can access it all. Everything. It's a police state. 1984, George Orwell's An Orwellian Nightmare. They created Facebook. Facebook created a cryptocurrency that's really not a cryptocurrency. It's really an advanced fiat currency for online. It's called the Libra coin. Now here's the difference between the Bitcoin and the Libra coin. With the Bitcoin, it's not based on the American dollar. It's somewhat like a fiat cryptocurrency based on the people who bought into it. The belief in the beholder. But one thing about the Bitcoin is it has anonymity. Whereas with the Libra coin, you're going to have to register. And now the government has more access and control over what you're doing. This is why I did the Keep It Real show the other day to break down the gold standard. Donald Trump is bringing back the gold standard, but you can't see it coming. You still stuck on emotions. If you're not already with the flow, it's simply because you're stuck on emotions. You don't see the bigger picture. Well, let's do a little breakdown on the Libra coin.
It looks like it is all happening. It looks like Trump, the Patriots, they are ready to redo the entire world economic trade system. Trump has announced today that's their next move. We also understand that the Fed bill now has many co-signers. It looks like the plan is coming together. But the deep state, the central bankers, they still are pushing their agenda. And I just wanted to touch upon Facebook and Libra. And Libra is really not a cryptocurrency. It is centralized, first of all, and it is based off current currencies right now. And it is controlled by Facebook. And the whole purpose of Libra is to wreck the entire system. They're going to use it against the current economic system. That is the whole purpose. Their strategy is to have people move from the Federal Reserve debt note into their new system. Their new system will then take over because Facebook has millions and millions of people, actually billions, and you can use Libra to pay for pretty much everything. And remember, the central bankers, the deep state, mainstream media, they've been pounding it into us that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, well, they're used for money laundering, terrorists, and crimes and things like that. And that's because of their anonymity feature. And guess what? Libra doesn't have this. Libra, there's no privacy. You will know who's doing what. And this is exactly what the deep state, the central banks want. They want to know who is doing what. And just like every bill the deep state tries to push in Congress, the Affordable Care Act, the Patriot Act, it always means the opposite. And the name Libra is an ironic choice. It is the Latin word for scales and suggests a fair balance, like the scales of justice are meant to do. But this faux cryptocurrency will unbalance the American economy. Again, it is always the opposite of what they're trying to push. And Trump and the Patriots, they have a different economy all ready to go. Now, think about what is happening here. They're trying to push Libra and trying to start a brand new economic system because there's billions of people on Facebook. Facebook then will tell these billions of people, use Libra, you can pay for your groceries, you can pay for your bills, you can pay for everything. At the same time, the Patriots, they're preparing a brand new economic system away from the Federal Reserve, away from the central bank system. And what do you think the deep state is trying to do right now? They're trying to move everyone off of the system that we have currently today onto their system. And this way, no one will move to the Patriot system. They're trying all these different types of tricks, but it will not work. Now, currently, Trump and the Patriots, they need to keep this entire economic system operational. The GDP numbers came out today. They were well above expectations. Trump tweeted out the following: the second quarter GDP up 2.1%. Not bad considering we have the very heavy weight of the Federal Reserve anchor wrapped around our neck. Almost no inflation. USA is set to zoom. Once again, what did he do? He blamed all of this on the Federal Reserve. He's letting everyone know we would be doing a lot better if the Federal Reserve just did what I wanted them to do. Now, the IMF, they're out there and they're continually telling us that the world growth is declining. And they're blaming this on Trump's tariffs. And they're saying that growth is slowing. It's going to be an absolute disaster. If there isn't a trade deal, it will collapse. But when you really look at it and you look at what is really going on, yes, we have a slight slowdown. And this is coming from the Merchandise World Trade Monitor. And they're looking at the world trade volume, imports, exports of merchandise across the globe. And they've seen an increase of 0.3% in May from April, falling 0.6% in the prior month. And on a year-to-year basis, it fell about 0.4%. And it is down 2.1% from peak in October of 2018. Now, this is not that great, but the entire system isn't collapsing. If we go back to the financial crisis, you can actually see what it looks like when something completely collapses. Now, during 2008-2009, the CPB World Trade Monitor, their index, we were at that time at about 103, 104. The entire thing collapsed to about 83. Where are we today with the World Trade Index? we're around 122. Why? Because most of this is based on people spending money. Think about that for a second. If the Federal Reserve raises rates and people don't take out mortgages, people don't purchase automobiles, people don't use their credit cards, spending slows. If Trump pushes his agenda like he's doing, having the Federal Reserve lower interest rates, what do people do? Well, now they can afford a house, which means lumber, tar, copper, and everything else that picks up. People can afford an automobile because interest rates are very low. People will use their credit cards because interest rates are very low, and people will spend. This is what Trump is trying to do. He's trying to keep the system alive with people spending, with corporations and businesses taking out loans and spending and buying a lot of material and everything like that. We're not even close to a collapse in world trade growth. Now, if the Federal Reserve doesn't do what Trump wants and they continually raise the rates and they did what they were planning to do, yes, world trade growth would completely implode on itself, just like it did in 2008, 2009. And then it slowly picked itself back up because what did the Fed do? Let's see, they introduced stimulus, they introduced lower rates, and they continued to do this over and over and over. And it's starting to slow because they started to reverse course. And you can see this. Now, Trump, he came out today and he is going after the globalist trade system. Now, he removed a lot of the globalist trade deals. He replaced it with bilateral trade deals. And it looks like he is now moving at lightning speed. There's nothing to keep him back. He tweeted out the following: the World Trade Organization is broken when the world's richest countries claim to be developing countries to avoid World Trade Organization rules and get special treatment. No more. Today, I directed the U.S. Trade Representative to take action so that countries stop cheating the system at the expense of the U.S. And again, this whole entire system, this globalist system, was designed to be against the United States. Why? Because they were moving everything out of the United States. They were evening the playing field. So this way they can have a one world globalist trade system with one world currency and an unelected government that would control the entire thing. This is why it was designed this way. Trump right now is reversing this, and he's putting out a call saying, okay, enough is enough. We're going after the big fish. And this is not the only big fish he's going to be going after. He's going to be going after many, many more. But he's getting ready to take down the entire globalist system. He has full control of the economy. He has full control of the narrative. He's been making new deals, and he's going to push this forward. Now, very interestingly, we know that Thomas Massie, he put out HR 24. This is the Federal Reserve Act of 2019. It's to audit the Fed. That's the bill that he's pushing. And it looks like Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard has just signed on as a co-sponsor of the audit. Now, the bill authorizes the General Accountability Office to perform a full audit of the Fed's conduct of monetary policy, including the Fed's mysterious dealings with Wall Street, central banks, and government. Thomas Massie said there are 4 Democratic co-sponsors and 80 Republican co-sponsors for the bill. It was recently passed in the House of Representatives as it heads to the Senate. Now, will it pass the Senate? Most likely not. We still have corruption there. It will sit there. And remember how this whole thing is going to work. There needs to be some type of an event, a crisis, to push these bills. And this is what we're building up to. This is all part of the plan. It is going exactly the way we thought. Trump is going after the globalist system. We see the audit the Fed bill coming into the Senate. It's already been passed by the House. There's a lot of co-sponsors on this. Doesn't mean it's going to pass right now. But once that crisis hits, Once, and I'm talking, this is after 2020, by the way, once this hits, the floodgates are open. There's nothing that will stop this. And the American people, the world, will find out what the Federal Reserve has been doing over these many, many years. And people are going to start to realize it is not in the best interest of the American people. Think about what Trump has been doing. He's been contradicting the Fed, calling the Fed out, setting the Fed up, putting the Fed in a bad light. And then all of a sudden, the Fed's going to turn around, because this is part of the plan, raise rates. The economy is going to start to slow. He's going to contradict them. There's going to be a crisis. And then all of a sudden, there's going to be a call to audit the Fed.
Boom. The story gets even deeper. So Donald Trump went in front of the United Nations and he gave a speech that only Donald Trump can do. And the speech sounded like this.
See, if you want freedom, take pride in democracy, hold on to your sovereignty. And if you want peace, love your nation. Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first. The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique. It is why we in the United States have embarked on an exciting program of national renewal. In everything we do, we are focused on empowering the dreams and aspirations of our citizens. At the center of our vision for national renewal is an ambitious campaign to reform international trade. Our goal is simple. We want balanced trade that is both fair and reciprocal. As the United Kingdom makes preparations to exit the European Union, I have made clear that we stand ready to complete an exceptional new trade agreement with the UK that will bring tremendous benefits to both of our countries. We are working closely with Prime Minister Boris Johnson on a magnificent new trade deal.
Now, we just seen the trade deal with Japan go down. We covered that. And that deal is based on the gold standard. Now, interestingly enough, have you ever heard of Judy Shelton? Well, she just might enter the Fed, a Trump appointee. And this is what she thinks like.
International affairs. I was very much impressed when candidate Trump made an issue of the impact of exchange rate shifts. I think that particularly currency manipulation, which is a very deliberate effort to gain an advantage by changing the value of your currency relative to your rival or your competitor's currency in the international marketplace. But I think in any case, we need to talk about how can we really call it an international economy where people can come into the marketplace and compete legitimately when we don't account for the impact of exchange rate shifts. So I'm hoping that we can get to more fundamental monetary reform under this administration.
So one one big question right now is who he'll choose to be the next Fed president. Yes. Is he looking at people who are substantially different from each other? Could we see very different approaches depending on who's chosen?
Well, the chairman of the Fed has become an extremely important position, probably too important. We have kind of a wag the dog situation where our central bank plays too strong a role in.
Wait a minute. How many of you know what wag the dog means? There was a movie came out during Clinton's presidency. It was called Wag the Dog. You might want to go on Netflix and check that out. It's when you create a system purely using Hollywood magic to disrupt the monetary system. Now, she mentioned on an international trade level that other countries can come in and manipulate their currency. This is why we move on a gold standard. Because if you operate the trade on a gold standard, the trade has to go down at the current rate of gold, which completely eliminates the possibility for countries like China to manipulate the currency. Now, you just pay attention when he makes this deal with China, the trade will be based on the gold standard. This is that level playing field. What does that mean to you? Well, once international trade starts to be operated on a gold standard, it's already doom and gloom for the Fed. Now, all of you experienced the 2008 housing bubble. If you had any bread and you owned a home, you went belly up and underwater. Where'd all the money go? Let's assume you had a house worth $200,000 in 2007. By 2008, your $200,000 home was worth $40,000. Where'd all the money go? You still own the house, but the value is gone. That's when Barack Obama stepped in and dropped $900 billion into the banking system. Too big to fail. And y'all just clap, oh, we love Obama. We could have ended the Fed that year. Obama could have put us on the gold standard. He didn't do that. He got a shovel out and deep in the swamp. Dug it deeper. And since Obama to now, the Fed came in and added another $3 trillion on top of the $900 billion. I showed you the graphs. If you didn't see it, it's because you ain't paying attention. So, if you came into the show late and you didn't understand what was going on, let's end it the way we came in on it.
Replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. The Washington establishment and the financial and media corporations that fund it exists for only one reason: to protect and enrich itself. The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake in this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. Our campaign represents a true existential threat like they haven't seen before. This is not simply another four-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The political establishment has brought about the destruction of our factories and our jobs as they flee to Mexico, China, and other countries all around the world. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities. This is a struggle for the survival of our nation, and this will be our last chance to save it. This election will determine whether we're a free nation or whether we have only the illusion of democracy, but are in fact controlled by a small handful of global special interests rigging the system, and our system is rigged. This is reality. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents, in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Honestly, she should be locked up. The most powerful weapon deployed by the Clintons is the corporate media, the press. Let's be clear on one thing. The corporate media in our country is no longer involved in journalism. They're a political special interest, no different than any lobbyist or other financial entity with a total political agenda, and the agenda is not for you, it's for themselves. Anyone who challenges their control is deemed a sexist, a racist, a xenophobe. They will lie, and then again, they will do worse than that. They will do whatever is necessary. The Clintons are criminals, remember that. This is well documented, and the establishment that protects them has engaged in a massive cover-up of widespread criminal activity at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation in order to keep the Clintons in power. They knew they would throw every lie they could at me and my family and my loved ones. They knew they would stop at nothing to try to stop me. Nevertheless, I take all of these slings and arrows gladly for you. I take them for our movement so that we can have our country back. I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when. And I knew the American people would rise above it and vote for the future they deserve. The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. Our great civilization has come upon a moment of reckoning. I didn't need to do this, folks, believe me. I built a great company, and I had a wonderful life. I could have enjoyed the fruits and benefits of years of successful business deals and businesses for myself and my family, instead of going through this absolute horror show of lies, deceptions, malicious attacks. Who would have thought? I'm doing it because this country has given me so much, and I feel so strongly that it's my turn to give back to the country that I love. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Now, that's what you call draining the swamp. On the next show, we're going to explain where the swamp money lies, and how he destroying it. I know you heard about the Turkish and the Kurds, But I know you don't know nothing about the Turkish and the Kurds. But it's going down. The game is deeper than you can imagine. This ain't about Democrat and Republican. This is about freedom versus corruption. And all y'all who are against the grind, going against the flow, y'all part of the swamp. Y'all part of the socialist communists of America. And it's going down. Watch and see.